Welcome to this week's Desk Side Chat. Our conversation for this week is managing an efficient and productive calendar. We have Mike and Matt Verstegen joining us as our featured guests this week. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
So, Mike, you and I go back a little bit in my old role. We had worked together, and I know a little bit about your practice and your career, what's brought you to this point. You and I had talked about this topic and some of the things that you personally do and you do across the office, and specifically mentioned some things that you picked up from Kitsy's in terms of managing an effective calendar. But before we jump into the topic, if you could provide us a quick overview on your practice, your experience in the industry, and Matt, if you could do that as well, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, I got my start in 2000, worked for Morgan Stanley for probably about 3 years, then moved on to, I was in the bank channel, credit union channel for about 7 years, and then branched off on my own with my business partner, Matt Vandenboom, probably back in 2012. And I think you want us to know just what we manage and things like that, or
whatever you're comfortable sharing. Yeah.
We have a lot of households here, and I forget the number that we have assets under management. Just from a staff standpoint, Matt joined us in March of 2021. Just hired my middle son Brett in June of this year, and then we have 2 admin people. But on the other side of the my business partner also has 3 advisors with him too. So there's a lot of advisors and some support staff to help us with this. And this is kind of the timely subject of it, because this calendar has really helped our support staff just scheduling meetings and helped us become a little bit more efficient.
Thank you. Matt, a little background on yourself as well, please.
Sure. I graduated from college in 2016. I got my CPA shortly thereafter, was working for Ernst & Young for about 2.5 years. Went to work for a mutual fund shop in their back office, doing some corporate finance stuff and compensation related activities. Like Mike said, I joined the business in March of 21, got licensed, and am working under him as a support advisor now.
Perfect. All right. So thank you both for sharing that. Let's go ahead and jump in. So Mike, your background started off in a much more structured environment, branching off into the independent world, which is presents a lot of opportunities as well as a lot of challenges. And certainly some of those challenges come around having that structure and having things in place from a calendar standpoint. So can you talk a little bit about the development over your career and kind of understanding how important this was in kind of leading to where you are today in terms of managing your time and calendar?
Yeah, I think, you always ask the support staff that you wanted, for me, I think 4 meetings per day is enough. And in order to be efficient on the back end with all the things that need to be done is from a follow-up standpoint, and making sure that the notes are communicated well within the office and the follow-up items are communicated well. And also doing the notes, we use Copy Talk for most of the meetings from a follow-up standpoint, but just making sure that those are communicated efficiently. We felt, I think one of our support staff was, they felt almost guilty not scheduling something in an efficient way. So if I had 4 appointments a day, they might sneak one in and just say, well, they needed to get in for whatever reason. And I think this really started this block scheduling. It helped a lot of things. It helped me, first of all, control my sanity. I think that's probably the most important thing. It made everyone accountable from a scheduling standpoint. And then I don't like to take appointments on Friday, so I usually block that off. And that got to be a little bit cumbersome too, as far as, you know, scheduling meetings on Friday. I typically like to reserve Fridays for catch up and prepare for next week and to answer any questions. Once Matt got on board, I felt like, and he expressed that there wasn't enough time in the day because of the amount of meetings that I had and the prep time for me to train him. It was a very good point, and something that I had to listen to. And then he found an article through Kitsis, Michael Kitsis, and an article that Stephanie Bogan wrote about time blocking. And I'm not sure if he had any experience in the past, but basically blocking off my calendar for set periods of time and blocking that off for anything that we would need from a standpoint. So it's really worked well. There's no questions as far as booking appointments. There's a scheduled appointment for a scheduled time, and if the support staff overbooks something, I will go to them and say there's too many meetings here. And I think it's really helped our office communicate a little bit more effectively and more efficiently. And then most importantly, with the younger staff that I have here, or the younger advisors I have here, I do have the time for them to come in with any questions that they might have, follow-up items, or just clarifications on what I meant from the notes standpoint. So the more efficient we are, I guess the better off we are. And it just, the other thing that I only wanted to take meetings in one evening meeting during the week, and that got to be a little bit cumbersome, whereas, you know, working past 5, you know, 3 to 4 days a week, and now I have it blocked off, and if I do need to meet past 5 o'clock on a different day, that's, you know, they typically come in with my permission to work a little bit, you know, a little bit longer. So it's really helped, and we've had to make some adjustments along the way too, where Matt had come in and said, well, I'm not gaining enough time, so we created another block during the afternoon, set aside an hour where there's no meetings, and there's time for me to kind of sneak in. I think my admin would say the same thing, that there's more time to ask questions during the day, because it used to be, you know, back to back meetings, where now that she had, you know, maybe 10 questions to get answered during the day, and now there's enough time to answer those questions during meetings, and then also do the notes right away after the meetings. Because if you don't do the notes right after the meetings, we found that there's something that gets missed, and so that's, you know, been extremely important to us. So it seems real simple, but it's really helped our office block off the times, and making sure that we have enough time to communicate, and especially with the younger advisors on staff, gives them time to kind of pick my brains why I'm doing things a certain way, and then also, you know, which is a good thing, challenge me on how things should be done, and possibly done differently. So it also gives us time to prep for, you know, future meetings, but it's been for me, it's been kind of a game changer as far as setting some times up. And you can really block it off however you want to, you know. So I have some time set aside for this program, another program, and also some business development as well. Anything to add or subtract there, Matt?
No, I think we should show the block schedule if we can share screen here, John.
Anything to add there, John, before I?
No, let me, Matt, do you want to share, or Mike?
Give it to Mike.
Yeah. Okay. If you want to share, yeah, that would be helpful.
So this is the Kitsis article. I think it was written back in October 11th of 2001, taking agency of your time for high performance, income growth, and advisor happiness. She does a good job. I don't know if you've ever listened to her, but she's really good with a lot of her ideas. This is an example of a monthly calendar that she has set aside in this article, but this is another example of just a weekly calendar. And then I'll show you my red tail calendar, what it looks like. It looks overwhelming right now, but we really have early in the morning, a time to, this is for one-on-one with the younger advisors or the support staff to or ask any questions that I might have before the meeting gets done. Then we have 2 blocks of typically an hour and a half in case the meeting runs over. But the hour and a half, typically meetings last about an hour, but that gives me about a half hour to make sure that the notes are done and completed. So we have 2 time periods. Typically on Monday, we have kind of a kickoff meeting just to make sure that we're prepped for the week. And if there's any questions that anyone has for that week. And then on 2 o'clock every single day, we have an hour set aside for, which I just call office hours, that are set aside for any questions that might come up for the day, and then allows me to train Matt and Brett and any of the younger advisors, and even some of our assistants that want to maybe step into a new role here as well. And then you can see that I have kind of some blocks for some evening appointments. The only evening appointment that I do take is on Tuesday evening. I got Megan's birthday on here. She's our admin. So, and then, so it's pretty consistent. On purpose, we have a set number of meetings that we want to accomplish during the week. We feel like this is enough. And if more need to be added, hypothetically towards year end, we set those aside. Yeah, so it's been working well for us. And then typically everyone knows that I have Friday blocked off, completely blocked off. I'm typically in the office, but just don't want any meetings, and that's why Friday's blocked off. So, but this is kind of what it looks like, and then it's very self-explanatory for whoever's scheduling the meetings, whether it's whoever answers the phone, if it's Megan, who's our receptionist, or Amy's, there's certain blocks of period of time, and they know exactly what times are open, what times are not, and kind of the intentions of what we're doing. So,
So a couple things to add here. Everyone in our office uses the same color coordination in Redtail. So if you're just looking at an open calendar, it's pretty easy to tell. Yellow blocks are time blocks in Mike's calendar where there can be a meeting that fits in here. The dark green is internal meetings, and then we use blue for review appointments. Pretty easy to see at a glance what block is open when you're trying to schedule something on the phone. It also is easy to look at someone else's calendar and know what's going on, because the amount of colors can get disorienting in Redtail. In terms of setting up the blocks, kind of work backwards from Mike knew he wanted to take 4 appointments a day. So how do we fit these in a work day? You can see for the most part, the blocks are the same, but depending on what he wants to do a certain day of the week, for instance, the round table on Wednesdays, that overlaps a block, but knowing that there's overlap there means that the admin scheduling the meeting have the flexibility to schedule into that if they need to. For the most part, it stays the same from week to week. We built the blocks bigger than 1 hour increments, which are our typical review appointments, for if there's overlap, and 2, not everyone can meet at the same exact time. So allowing that window gives some flexibility to scheduling the meeting. Also having like a 2 hour block rather than a 1 hour block gives that time in between appointments to catch up after the meeting, to review notes, to get notes sent to Copy Talk, and rather than going from meeting to meeting to meeting, it just breaks it up a little bit so it's not so intense during the day.
Thank you both for sharing that. Mike, real quick before we jump into the open discussion with other attendees, what was the progression like for you personally? So Matt brings up this article, this is something you need to do. What did that look like in the beginning as you were transitioning into setting this more structured schedule? And then how often do you go in? So two questions. What did that look like in terms of the progression? And then the second question would be, what is your ongoing maintenance? How frequently do you go in and make adjustments or tweaks? And I guess, Matt, that would be for you as well.
I think we go in as much as needed and tweak some things. I think the last one was just the 2 to 3 time block period where Matt came in and said, we're not spending enough time together and we need to, we need to set some more time aside just for questions that come out through the course of the day. And that has to be in the afternoon because stuff gets a little busy. I think the progression was, Matt early came on and said, probably 3 months into this and said, you are basically crazy with how you're working right now. And you need to tone this down a little bit and just try to make life a little bit easier. You don't need to meet how many times you meet during the course of the day. I mean, you used to have 20 appointments. And by Friday, I was just completely brain dead because it was just so many appointments and so much stuff going on. So, but I think the time block was just, the nice thing about it is you can structure it however you want to. And if you only want to have 10 meetings a day in a certain time period, but to me, it clearly defines what you want to do and how you want to do it. But I think also when younger advisors are coming in, you have to have an open mind and completely, make sure that you're listening and then trying to figure out a problem, how to solve it. And I was very fortunate that Matt had I understood that my schedule got a little bit too crazy, and this was a great way to maintain my schedule, maintain my sanity, and also, most importantly, give the time that the younger advisors deserve in the office in order to make sure that they're being trained the right way. So I think that was extremely important. But I think, as far as maintaining this thing, it's ongoing. It's ongoing, and I also mentioned that Brett is getting up to speed here too. And he's probably going to have some suggestions as well. But I think the first thing is you just have to have an open mind of what to change and how to change it. And obviously, as we get into this business, we become a little bit more stubborn. But you have to be open to new ideas and doing things different.
A couple more examples of evolutions over time. Started off with more time blocks, I would say. So like that 8 to 8:30, the one-on-one meeting, that was something that evolved a couple months into the block scheduling, where I'd come in, he usually gets into work before me, and he would already be getting ready for that meeting. I wouldn't have a chance to ask him, how do I need to prioritize my tasks today, or what do I need to focus on? So we baked in 30 minutes at the beginning of the day to get that addressed if we need to talk before he gets into the full swing of meetings. The office hours was another late addition. We probably only added that 3 months ago, where we'd have 3 meetings throughout a day, no chance to get a hold of him. And there would be a line outside his door when he had an open window with people with 10 to 15 questions on their yellow pad, trying to just check them off one by one, because that was the only time you could get a hold of him. So that office hours is a time exactly like you think of in college, where you can come in and be able to ask those questions without feeling like, well, I've waited 5 hours to ask a question and I need to ask 10 of them. How fast can I get this done? It freed up some of that. I think.
How often are the office hours? Is that once a week or?
That's every day,
Monday
through Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. And that was like, we picked that time because it was a natural window where there weren't a lot of meetings. So it kind of fit there. But I wouldn't say we schedule time to revise this. It's almost as we find a problem and then we identify how to fix it with adding that or adding the 8 to 8:30. And then as Mike mentioned, when Brett gets up to speed and is working on client tasks and follow-ups, he will probably have some changes too. So it's nothing that's scheduled. It's just natural evolution of the block scheduling.
And John, before this too, I think it's equally to point out too, is that my main assistant has been working for me for 14 years. So we can kind of go back and forth, and she knows me, and it's very good working relationship. She understands how I work, I function. So she was just used to it. We had another advisor in our office, April. She's no longer here anymore, but she was in the business longer than I was. So she also understood how I worked and my schedule. But I think that maybe just the boys' personality is that they're going to challenge me a little bit more, and they're open to that, to say, okay, we need to solve this, and I'm very thankful for that too. Is that I think the girls understood there was an issue, but there wasn't that follow-up of execution of how to solve it. And this is one nice thing about having younger people and a fresh set of eyes on what we're doing, is that they will challenge you and also give you a way to solve the problem.
And also probably help
that's one big thing too, John, is just like, okay, I admit that I have a problem. How do we solve it? And they came back, and this worked out really well. So.
And also I was going to say, it can help from a technology perspective. So you're using Redtail. Obviously you mentioned Copy Talk. What other technology resources are you using? A scheduling tool? What else are you using to create additional efficiency across the calendar?
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't use, and probably someone on the call is going to say, why don't you use Schedule Once? It would do that. I want complete and total control of my calendar, and I want to make sure that, and this might sound really, really bad, but I don't want someone booking something that I don't want booked in there in a time slot I don't want booked. So and that's why, why we have a receptionist to kind of monitor my calendar and monitor my calendar of where I want things. So I don't use Schedule Once. The boys use Schedule Once, and because they have a little bit more free time. To answer your question, right now we're using for follow-up tasks, we're using Asana, which is basically a to-do list. So we do Copy Talk notes, and then someone in the offices basically schedules the Asana task list on there. We are exploring some new software that syncs with Redtail, and we're not there yet, but it's called Hubly. And that's the other thing that the boys want to kind of implement is workflows. But with workflows, there should be a to-do list, in my opinion. The Redtail workflows don't have a to-do list of things that need to be done in the order. Hubly has the workflows, and it also has to-do lists, and it syncs with Redtail. But we're in the early stages of exploring that. But it looks very promising, and something that we're looking into as well.
Oh,
Matt,
please.
anything else to add there?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt, if you have anything else.
No, you kind of hit it. The Asana is very nice, because if you've got 4 client meetings a day, there's chances are 5 to 10 follow-ups that come out of these meetings. The first step is finishing the notes, and then the notes go to one of the 2 admins who will put it in Asana, break out who is responsible for the follow-up task, and then scheduling it. The big disconnect right now is non-syncing with Redtail. So it's almost like we're running 2 separate calendars, and obviously that's not optimal. Schedule Once, that'll be a 23 item. Brett and I will both be using that, but as Mike said, total control of the calendar doesn't fit very well with having the ability for other people to put time on it. So we'll probably be using that for some of the client relationships that we'll be dealing with, but most of Mike's clients, it's all follow-up driven, where the admin will schedule the appointment, reach out to them to schedule the appointment, and it's very structured. The idea with the schedule once, it's more unstructured. If you need an appointment, you can get it. You just won't be working with Mike for those.
Good stuff. All right. Well, let's conclude the public portion of the meeting with that. Please do keep us in the loop as you continue to develop and add additional tools, and as you continue to hone and refine that calendar. Obviously, others will be willing to share as well. So hopefully, rising tide lifts all boats. Everybody gets better together. Thank you both so much for joining us this week. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.